Dawn raids and arrested 6 people as part of their plan to foil Victoria's brewing.
A patch on a leather jacket, 3 colors stitched together. For decades, these symbols ruled Australian streets with fear and power. But in 2024, Victoria drew a line. The Criminal Organisations Control Amendment Act passed Parliament with one clear message. Your colors are done. 26 outlaw motorcycle gangs, 2,000 members, and a government ready to strip them of their most powerful weapon. This is Victoria's war against the bikies, and the colors they refuse to surrender. Victoria, Australia has earned an unwanted reputation. Politicians called it the Switzerland of the country, neutral territory where outlaw bikies felt safe to operate. While Queensland, New South Wales, and other states cracked down hard on motorcycle gangs, Victoria remained lenient. The result was predictable. Bikie gangs migrated south, establishing headquarters, recruiting members, and expanding their criminal empires in a state where laws couldn't touch them. Shadow Attorney General Michael O'Brien didn't mince words when addressing Parliament in September 2024. He stated that Victoria had become Disneyland for bikies, a playground where organized criminals operated with impunity while the government watched. For years, intelligence reports warned of the infiltration. In 2015, a Victoria police report identified known members of outlaw motorcycle gangs like the Rebels, Comancheros, and Bandidos working as trade union members, participating in strikes, and operating as debt collectors across the construction industry. The government knew, and for nearly a decade, they did nothing. The numbers painted a disturbing picture. Minister for Police Anthony Carbines revealed to Parliament that 26 individual recognized outlaw motorcycle gangs operated in Victoria with around 2,000 gang members and associates. These weren't motorcycle enthusiasts gathering for weekend rides. These were sophisticated criminal organizations involved in drug trafficking, firearms smuggling, extortion, fraud, violent assaults, arson, and infiltration of legitimate industries. Victoria's problems with bikie gangs stretched back decades. The state had attempted to address organized crime multiple times, but legislation repeatedly failed to achieve results. In 2015, the government introduced unlawful association laws promising to stop bikie gangs in their tracks. Those laws proved ineffective. The gangs adapted, evolved, and continued their operations unimpeded. Victoria tried again, and again the legislation fell short. By 2024, the state faced a critical choice: enact genuinely effective laws or accept permanent status as Australia's bikie haven. August 28, 2024 marked a turning point. The Allen Labor government introduced the Criminal Organisations Control Amendment, Bill 2024, into Parliament. This legislation represented the third attempt to create effective unlawful association schemes. But this time, the government added provisions that would fundamentally change how Victoria dealt with organized crime. The bill aimed to strengthen Victoria's unlawful association scheme, introduce a new serious crime prevention order, prohibit the public display of gang colors, and ban members of specified organized crime groups from Victorian government worksites. The color ban provision struck at the heart of bikie gang identity. For outlaw motorcycle gangs, colors, patches, logos, and insignia serve multiple purposes. They represent gang membership. They intimidate communities. They attract and recruit new members. They establish territorial dominance. When a bikie walks into a pub wearing his colors, everyone knows who he represents and what that representation implies. The colors are power made visible. The new law banned the public display of insignia for certain criminal groups. This included wearing colors on clothing or jewelry, displaying them on signs or flags, and showing them on vehicles. The legislation gave Victoria police authority to confiscate or remove items bearing bikie gang colors and symbols. Police Minister Anthony Carbines made the government's position clear when announcing the reforms. Victoria would disrupt, dismantle, and get right up the nose of organized crime every way possible. The Serious Crime Prevention Order scheme represented another significant weapon in the legislative arsenal. This provision allowed the Chief Commissioner of Police to apply to a court to impose broad conditions on someone who participated in serious criminal activity or was likely to help another person engaging in serious criminal behavior. The orders specifically targeted organized crime group leaders who often avoid direct involvement in crimes while orchestrating operations from behind the scenes. A serious crime prevention order could prohibit an individual from leaving Victoria, possessing firearms, or holding certain amounts of cash. The scheme recognized that organized crime operates through hierarchies where leaders maintain distance from street-level criminality. By restricting the movements and resources of these leaders, police could disrupt entire criminal networks rather than just arresting foot soldiers. The strengthened unlawful association scheme lowered the threshold for issuing unlawful association notices, allowing police to issue them more easily and in wider circumstances. Violations carried penalties of up to 3 years imprisonment. The scheme aimed to prevent criminals from associating with each other and to discourage others from joining criminal networks. By making it illegal for gang members to gather, communicate, or coordinate activities, the legislation sought to fracture the organizational structures that made Bikie gangs effective. The ban on gang members entering Victorian government worksites addressed a specific and alarming problem. Construction industry infiltration by organized crime had become endemic. Bikie gang members worked on major government projects, using their positions to extort money, intimidate workers, launder funds, and establish criminal networks. The construction ban complemented federal government efforts to stamp out corruption exposed across the building industry. Parliament passed the Criminal Organizations Control Amendment Act 2024 later in the year. Attorney General Jacqueline Symes declared that organized crime and thuggish behavior had no place in Victoria, and the state was making that clear with some of the toughest laws in the country. Minister for Police Anthony Carbines put organized crime groups and Bikie gangs on notice. Victoria, police wouldn't hesitate to use these new laws to keep Victorians safe. The laws were scheduled to come into effect in 2025. Giving police time to prepare enforcement strategies and giving the community notice of the changes. The implementation would build upon the Confiscation Amendment Act 2024, which addressed unexplained wealth, ensuring there was no payday for crime bosses who couldn't explain the origins of their assets. Victoria's Bikie problem didn't develop overnight. According to the Australian Crime Commission, Australia hosts 35 outlaw motorcycle gangs, with a combined membership of around 3,500 patched Bikies. These include international clubs like the Bandidos, Hells Angels, and Gypsy Jokers, as well as homegrown groups like the Comancheros, Finks, and Rebels. The Bandidos, Comancheros, Hells Angels, Finks, Mongols, and Rebels are considered the Big Six Bikie gangs in Australia. The Rebels represent Australia's largest outlaw motorcycle club, with approximately 2,000 members across 29 chapters. The Comancheros, founded in the late 1960s by William George Ross, operate chapters in Western Australia, Victoria, and South Australia, with between 250 and 300 members. The Hells Angels maintain 150 to 250 members in Australia. Each gang controls territories, runs criminal enterprises, and maintains sophisticated organizational structures. Academic research estimates that serious and organized crime costs Australians up to $60 billion annually. That's $60 billion that could improve communities, fund education, support healthcare, and build infrastructure. Instead, flowing into criminal pockets. The economic impact extends beyond direct costs. Communities plagued by gang violence see property values decline, businesses struggle, and residents live in fear. Victoria Police had already begun aggressive enforcement before the colour ban passed. The VIPER Taskforce, launched in July 2022, represented Victoria Police's most significant move to target serious and organized crime syndicates in the state. VIPER stands for Visibility, Intelligence, Prevention, Enforcement, and Reassurance. This 80-strong innovative unit combined police from a wide range of specialist roles, including Public Order Response Team, State Highway Patrol, General Duties Officers, Intelligence Officers, and detectives from various backgrounds. In its first 2 years of operation, VIPER processed 1,028 offenders and issued 2,160 charges. The task force conducted 211 seizures of ammunition and firearm parts, including 3D-printed firearm equipment. They seized 233 other weapons, including conducted energy devices, knives, swords, knuckle dusters, ASP batons, and explosives. They impounded 11 vehicles and undertook approximately 80 regional deployments across Victoria. VIPER's operations demonstrated police commitment to disrupting Bikie gangs. In November 2023, VIPER worked with Lunar and Echo task forces during a 2-day operation targeting Fink's gang members across Victoria, seizing 7 imitation firearms, drugs, and a crossbow while arresting 6 people. In January 2024, firearm prohibition order searches on 2 men linked to the Hells Angels in Craigieburn resulted in seizure of 4 pistols, 2 imitation firearms, ammunition, and contraband. In June 2024, a joint operation with Geelong Police resulted in 20 arrests and 34 firearm prohibition order searches. The color ban complemented this operational pressure. Where VIPER conducted physical enforcement through arrests and seizures, the color ban attacked Bikie gang identity and recruitment. Potential recruits are drawn to the mystique of Bikie culture, the leather, the patches, the visible symbols of power and brotherhood. Remove those symbols from public view, and the recruitment appeal diminishes significantly. Other Australian states had already implemented similar legislation with measurable success. Queensland enacted tough Bikie laws that drove many gang members to relocate. New South Wales introduced control orders preventing gang members from associating. South Australia, despite legal challenges, pursued aggressive anti-gang legislation. Tasmania banned 6 outlaw motorcycle gangs from wearing their colours in public, including the Bandidos, Outlaws, Devil's Henchmen, Black Oolans, Rebels, and Nomads. The legal challenges facing color bans and anti-association laws cannot be ignored. In 2010, Derek Wainohu of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club successfully challenged New South Wales legislation in the High Court, arguing that control orders preventing gang members from associating violated legal principles. The court ruled parts of the act invalid because judges making control orders had insufficient obligation to provide procedural fairness. This decision demonstrated that anti-gang legislation must balance public safety with individual rights and legal due process. Victoria's legislation learned from these challenges. The Criminal Organizations Control Amendment Act included provisions for independent broad-based anti-corruption commission, oversight of the unlawful association scheme. Courts maintain discretion in imposing serious crime prevention orders, providing judicial review of police applications. The legislation attempted to create a framework that would withstand constitutional challenges while giving police effective tools to combat organized crime. The Bikie response to Victoria's color ban remained largely unknown, as the law prepared for implementation in 2025. Historically, Bikie gangs have adapted to legal pressure in various ways. Some gangs recruit associates and prospects to conduct criminal activities, while patched members maintain distance from direct involvement. Others shift operations to jurisdictions with weaker laws. Some gangs simply ignore legislation, forcing police to conduct enforcement that leads to arrests, court battles, and ongoing legal warfare. The cultural significance of Bikie colors cannot be overstated. For gang members, the patch represents years of loyalty, criminal activity, and dedication to the club. Earning full patch membership in an outlaw motorcycle gang requires proving oneself through illegal acts, demonstrating unwavering loyalty, and ascending through prospect and associate ranks. The patch symbolizes identity, belonging, and status within the criminal underworld. Asking a bikie to surrender his colors is like asking him to surrender his identity. Victoria's legislation recognized this psychological warfare element. By making public display of colors illegal, the law forced gang members to choose between visibility and legality. Wear your colors and face arrest. Hide your colors and lose the intimidation factor and recruitment appeal. Either choice weakened the gang's operational effectiveness. The construction industry ban addressed a specific vulnerability. Major government projects worth billions of dollars provided lucrative opportunities for organized crime. Bikie gang members infiltrating construction sites could extort subcontractors, steal materials, launder money through shell companies, recruit workers into criminal networks, and use their positions to facilitate other crimes. The ban on gang members accessing government worksites aimed to protect these projects from corruption. Implementation of the color ban faced practical challenges. How would police identify which groups qualified for the ban? The legislation specified that regulations would designate which organizations fell under the prohibition. This regulatory approach allowed government to add or remove organizations as circumstances changed without requiring new legislation. However, it also meant potential disputes over which groups should be listed and whether listing criteria were applied fairly. Enforcement mechanisms required careful planning. Would police conduct random street checks for gang insignia? Would they focus on known gang hangouts and events? Would they rely on community reports? The legislation gave police power to confiscate items bearing prohibited insignia, but practical enforcement would determine the law's effectiveness. A ban only works if police actively enforce it and courts support prosecutions. The academic and criminological community offered mixed assessments of color ban effectiveness. Some researchers argued that banning gang colors pushed criminal activity underground without reducing actual crime rates. Others contended that visible symbols played crucial roles in gang recruitment and intimidation, making bans worthwhile. Studies from other jurisdictions with color bans showed varied results. Some reported reduced gang visibility and recruitment, while others found gangs simply adapted their methods. Victoria's legislation represented more than just a color ban. The comprehensive approach combining unlawful association provisions, serious crime prevention orders, construction industry bans, and color prohibition created a multi-layered enforcement strategy. No single provision would destroy Bikie gangs, but the combined effect aimed to make organized crime operations progressively more difficult, risky, and unprofitable. The human cost of Bikie gang activity drove the legislative push. Families destroyed by drug addiction, funded through gang distribution networks. Business owners extorted and intimidated. Communities terrorized by gang violence. Construction workers pressured to join criminal schemes or face retaliation. Innocent bystanders caught in gang conflicts. Every statistic represented real human suffering, suffering that Victoria's government finally committed to addressing seriously. Victoria's journey from Bikie haven to battleground reflected Australia's broader struggle against organized crime. For too long, the state offered refuge to criminal organizations, fleeing tougher laws elsewhere. The Criminal Organizations Control Amendment Act, 2024 declared that era finished. Whether the color ban and associated provisions would successfully disrupt Bikie gangs remained to be proven through 2025 implementation and enforcement. What stood beyond doubt was Victoria's determination to reclaim its streets from the patches, colors, and intimidation that outlaw motorcycle gangs had wielded for decades. The Bikies built their empires on visibility and fear. Victoria's new law aimed to strip away both. The final ride had begun, and only time would reveal who would emerge victorious from this legislative showdown.